Hello, welcome to another live. If you can see and hear me okay, then just let me know in the comment section because I'm having some technical issues with YouTube. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the screen and it's just coming up in blank. So I'm just talking to a blank screen at the moment, and I'm pretty sure I can see when people log in, but I just can't see myself. So anyway, I will continue. So in today's session, I wanted to talk about a topic that was suggested by someone who tuned into another session. It was last week, and it was a really useful, it's really useful to get your feedback and to hear what topics you want me to talk about. I love this. I love it when people bring up questions and it becomes interactive rather than just me talking to a screen and about topics that I think you might find beneficial, but I'd love to hear what you really want me to talk about. And the topic that came up was all about choices, decisions, and the fear of change, the fear of like when there's that uncertainty and you're not quite sure, like, oh, there's a change I want to make, but there's some fear coming up, or you know you need to make a change, but you're not quite sure what. Like there's this fear of uncertainty that comes up. And I wanted to discuss this a little bit because this is an important topic and something that a lot of people are struggling with, a lot of people that are finding very challenging at the moment, and especially in the last probably like 5 years. I mean, there's this has always been a topic, but since 2020, this has been a huge topic, uncertainty, and there has been a lot of fear coming up for people around uncertainty, a lot of anxiety. There's been a big increase in this. So I wanted to talk about this and how we can make it a little bit easier. There are many things. I won't be able to explain everything in one video, though this is something that it can be really like the things that I will share will be some useful tips to get started and things that I've seen that work well with both myself and my clients. And this, of course, there are many things out there, but here are a few. I can't fit everything into one talk and one live. So thank you for joining. If you can see me okay and hear me okay, just let me know in the comments section. That'd be really helpful because I'm having a few technical issues with YouTube. So today's topic, all about uncertainty and that choice and the decisions. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about choice and decisions, like when we make decisions, when there's something coming up. Okay, great. You can hear me and see me. Wonderful. Thank you for letting me know. So choices and decisions. This is something that when this comes up, when we have an A and a B, or like I want this, or I'm not sure, do I want that, or there's something there, like we're going between different options and we're finding that a little bit challenging. It can be really useful, as I mentioned in the last live, I just touched upon it, but I'll recap here. It can be really useful to notice what's going on within the body. Notice what's going on within the body and to really notice, okay, so I've got option A, I've got option B, for example. Maybe there's 2 different houses that you're looking at, or 2 different jobs you want to apply for, or you're dating and you're getting to know different people and you're deciding who to continue with. Many options there. So A and B. So say you're looking at moving to a new place and there's option A and there's option B. This was actually what I was talking about in the last live, that I used this when I was deciding whether to move to Spain or stay in the UK. So option A, option B, and you can pick one and just feel into it in a moment and talk about it as if you have decided that already and you are making that decision already. It's like, okay, for example, I'm moving to Spain. That was what I did 12, 13 years ago, a long time ago. So I was like, okay, I'm moving to Spain. And I would, saying that to myself, I would pay attention to what was going on within my body. How was my body responding? Did everything suddenly tense up? Did I suddenly get butterflies? Did certain parts of my body like tighten or go inwards, or did something feel expansive? Did things open up? Did it feel uplifting, exciting? Like really paying attention to what's going on with the body, because the body gives us so much information. So this is often the tendency that when we're between choices, when we're between decisions, that we're stuck up in the mind and we're just going over like, oh, this, that, pros, cons, and we're just thinking about it in this intellectual sense. And on some level, that can be useful to weigh up pros and cons and maybe write a list and have it clear. Though we also need to feel into the body, like what's the body telling us? So when I was doing this many, many years ago, I noticed that every time I was saying to myself, I'm moving to Spain or I'm going to live in Spain, my body felt more expansive. There was this opening feeling, and it just felt everything was opening up. And I would just keep repeating it. So I would focus on the decision of moving to Spain, and then I would switch and I'd focus on the decision of staying in the UK. And I would notice the difference, what was happening within my body. And focusing on when I was saying, I'm staying in the UK, I'm going to live in the UK, everything was clenching up a little bit and just feeling a little bit tense. Whereas when I was focused on moving to Spain, that everything opened up. So for me, that was a clear indication of, okay, there's something there. There's some information there that can help me make this decision. Worst case scenario, I can always just move back. So it's like, it's really useful to pay attention. Like we can, if we want to go through things logically with the mind, that we write a list, do pros and cons that way, but also pay attention to the body. Affirm that decision, like the A option and then the B option, and affirm that to yourself and just notice what the difference is between the two, what the body's telling you. Does one feel more expansive? Does one feel a little less expansive? Does it feel more contracted? Pay attention to that. And there are many, many other things that can really help with decision making. We have a wonderful technique in NLP, which is called parts integration, which is not something I can do on a live call here. It's something to really experience the full experience. It's something to go through in depth in a one-on-one session, and that's where you work with different parts of yourself, because sometimes when we are making decisions, sometimes it is some internal conflict there, and it's like there are two parts, like part of me wants this, part of me wants that. And when there's this internal conflict, then it can be quite challenging sometimes to really step forward in one direction, because you're like, half of you's going one direction, half of you's going in another direction. This is often what happens with people who are creating new habits and setting new goals. And if they don't create alignment at all levels, including the unconscious mind, which is what people often forget about, that there will be one foot going one way, another foot going another way, and that's when the self-sabotage kicks in. So it's important to notice that. It's just like, okay, what are the different options there? What's the decision? Like, is there some internal conflict there? Is something going against my values? Is something going against a belief that I hold unconsciously? Paying attention to that. And when we're going through life, as I like to say, growing through life, when we're growing through life and we're making different choices and decisions, everything we experience in life is thanks to the choices and decisions we've made up until now. I recorded a podcast about this a while back, and after the recording of this, I'll pop the link in the description. And I was talking about how often people say to me, oh, you're so lucky, you live in Spain, you're so lucky, you live in a sunny country. Coming from the UK, whenever I speak to people from the UK, that they often comment on this, because the UK is often lacking sunshine, and they will say, oh, you're so lucky. And I'll say, yes, I'm very privileged, very lucky, very blessed. Like there's a lot of things I can be very grateful for, and I have it easy. I have challenges, but also I have many things very easy as well compared to some people in the world. And still, it was choices and decisions that got me here, that I had to make some hard choices. I had to move. Yeah, like it was a decision of moving to another country and being further away from family, and like things like that. There's pros and cons for everything, yet often we can view other people or view situations or what they're experiencing and think, oh, they're so lucky, forgetting that it's the choices and decisions that they've made. And of course, like some privilege, there is privilege in that as well, that for some people, and some people don't have it as easy. Though what I want to talk about is in general that we, even if it is simply just making the choice and the decision to be at cause rather than not on the effect side of the scale. And this is what I was talking about in a previous class, that are we at cause, meaning are we taking responsibility for what we can influence in our life, like how we perceive events, what we choose to do with things? Are we asking for help when we need it? Are we deciding to create some changes when we need to, or are we just playing the victim? So I'm talking about this in general. Obviously, this doesn't apply to people in critical situations in the world, in certain circumstances that unfortunately people are experiencing still. Though, in generally, for the vast majority of us, we can really help out by not wasting our lives and really take responsibility for our lives and really make the most of the life experience that we have. And really, yeah, just be aware that every choice, every decision brings in a different experience. And often there's this tendency that where people are worried about, like, oh, what if I make the wrong choice? What if I make the wrong choice and it's the wrong decision? Every choice, every decision that we make will bring an experience. So it's a lot more helpful to see it as experiences rather than right and wrong. Because when we label something as right and wrong, we're judging it before even having stepped into the experience. And when we see something as an experience rather than as a judgment, we're much more open to learning from it. Because one of the presuppositions that we have in NLP is that there's no failure, there's always feedback. So we can perhaps make one decision, choose one thing, and then we figure out, oh no, this is actually not for me, and this is not the decision that I want to continue with. So then we can learn from it and then change our course. So it's all about learning from it. And often people think in life that it's like A to B, it's like a one straight road. Often it's like a wiggling line, and there's like little slip ups and setbacks and obstacles along the way. And from all of that, we gain experience, we gain stories, we gain insight, we gain skills, we gain opportunities, we gain so much from all of that. So just checking the comment section, going against my values. There's so much about that in my life right now. It's important to notice what are our values, like what's important, what do we value in life, and as much as we possibly can to align our life with that. Though if something is going against our value, perhaps, or some of our values, then perhaps that's an opportunity to reevaluate, to have a little look about, okay, like, do I want to continue this, or do I want to make a change and really start choosing things that are more in alignment? And that may take time, that may take stepping stones. Often it's not a click your fingers once and everything's sorted kind of situation. It's like a little adjustment, and it can take some time depending what the situation is. Though it's really important to really notice and be clear, okay, what do I value in life? Am I fulfilling those needs? And if not, how can I start fulfilling those needs? And often it's more up to us rather than the external situation that we're in. Because often we may be perceiving the external situation as, oh, it's because of that, I can't do this. Or, oh, it's because of that person that I'm not experiencing this, or blah, blah, blah. That's being on the effect side of the scale. That's playing the victim. So it's noticing, okay, what do I value? What's important? Am I living according to that? And if not, how can I be in more alignment? Like, how can I create a change? Little adjustments, little adjustments. It's all about what we can do ourselves to gain more me time. Yeah, so finding out what you can do to bring in a little bit more me time. So instead of not saying no because I fear what happens, break up because I go back. So fearing a breakup if you say no. And yeah, so it's important. It's really important. Like if you're in a relationship, if you want to have a high value relationship and you want to consider yourself as a high value woman or man or person, human being, and depending who we're talking about, but if you really want to consider yourself as that kind of person and you want to, that's something that you value and that's something that's important, then saying no sometimes is the most loving thing you can do for the other and for you and for the relationship. Because any relationship that you can't say no, that's not a proper relationship. So it's really important, and we can communicate this. It's like, I love you so much and I love spending time with you, and I know that I can be even more present and loving with you if I have some time to myself as well. Communicating it in that way. And then the person can really understand that this is something that's important and that they will benefit also by you having some me time. So yes. So this class, even though I've got the topic about choices, decisions, and fear of change, like fear of uncertainty, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. I love it when it's interactive so that you get this is your chance to get some free coaching, because not everyone can afford one-on-one sessions with me. So this is your chance every week. So yeah, decision making. Notice what's coming up in the mind, notice what the body's saying, and also like just be aware that there's no real right or wrong choice. You're simply just choosing between experiences, and it's what experience is in more alignment with what you value in life. And often this is the case that, I mean, when I've worked with clients that have brought this topic up in the past, often the case is that they're spending so much time just thinking about a decision from the mind. Maybe they check into the body, but still there's a lack of information, and they won't really know until they actually like dip their toe into some of the options. So for example, years ago, I was debating whether to become an art therapist, and this is something that I'm still very interested in, and it's a wonderful thing that people provide, art therapy, and there's so many things. I mean, if I could just do endless trainings and learn endless things and have endless resources and money to pay for it all, I would be happy to continue learning and studying. Though the art therapy, like I was umming and ahhing. This was years ago. This was like maybe like 14 years ago. I was umming and ahhing. I was like, oh, do I do art therapy? I'm not sure. Or do I learn something else? I was also interested in shiatsu massage. I was like interested in other therapies like Reiki. And then I started to get involved with NLP and then loved that. So there was many different things I was interested in. And I was umming and ahhing. And I didn't know. I was like, oh, do I sign up? It's a huge investment and it's a big training, and I wasn't sure. So what I did is I dipped my foot in. I went to an open day for potential art therapists, and we did some different exercises and practices. We got to speak to art therapists. We had a whole session there where we had like Q&A session. We were hearing about behind the scenes, what it really involves, what working in that field is like, what it's about. And I came away from that feeling really inspired and really like, wow, like still had a lot of respect for art therapists. And that was I thought that was a great profession, though I realized from that experience that it wasn't for me, that there were other routes and other things that felt more aligned at that time. So sometimes we don't actually know until we actually step into the experience. So it's like, how can we try? I mean, we do this with dating, right? Like, if you're going on online dating and you see two profiles, you can't just say, oh, yeah, that one's the person for me, and I'm going to start a relationship with that person. You can't do that until you've actually like been on a date with them and got to know them a little bit more. Maybe you go on dates with a few different people and get to see like who you click with, who you don't click with, who your values are in alignment with, and who you're not in alignment with. You get to test it out a little bit first before jumping right in. So if there's any decision that you need to make, find a way that you can test something out and just like try something out. Like if you're thinking about moving to a different town or different country, go and visit. Like go there for a weekend, like explore, maybe go on a working holiday if you've got flexible work, if you can work remotely, then take your work there. That's what I did years ago going to Menorca. I took my laptop and I worked there for 3 months and loved it. But then I realized that living on an island at the moment wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, as much as I love Menorca and it's one of my favorite places. And you don't know until you actually step into it. So you don't actually know. So sometimes you actually just need to say, okay, this will be the decision for now, and I will try it out. And then you can get more information in the actual experience, whether it's the right thing for you or not. Okay, just checking more questions. I don't remember what my body will tell me when when there's some nerves in the abdomen, in the belly, then it can. This is the thing. It's a practice. It's a practice. Really paying attention to what the body's communicating is a practice, and there can be moments, like in the moment there can be emotions, there can be nerves, there can be different sensations that we experience. And it's really like in those moments, if anything's feeling overwhelming, connect to the breath, inhale, exhale, feel your feet on the ground, feel that support of the ground. If you're sat down, feel the support of the chair. Like we're always being held in life, whether that's our feet and then we're being held by Mother Earth, or we're sat in a chair, or we're lying on the bed, or wherever. Like there's always some point of contact. None of us are, because of gravity, none of us are floating about. So there's always some point of contact. So see that as a, like put a label on that. This is when labels can be a good thing. Put a label on that, is that that's you receiving support. So back to the breath and back to a point of contact, physical contact, feet on the ground, and that can help navigate the situation. So let's talk a little bit about fear of change and uncertainty. I touched upon this in the beginning, how there can be a lot of, especially in the last few years, there's been a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear coming up for people, like what's happening with the world. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world, and a lot of uncertainty with different things, like whether that's been related to health things over the last few years, whether that's related to war and conflict, whether that's related to technology. There's been a lot of things that bring a lot of uncertainty. And this is a thing. There are 6 basic human needs. There are many different hierarchies, but the hierarchy that I use is the 6 basic human needs that Tony Robbins talks a lot about. Whether you love him or hate him, the 6 basic human needs are really useful. And so there are different needs, and we're always constantly searching for these. And sometimes we're looking for one or two more than the others. And there's this sense of perceived certainty. So I say perceived because really in life, nothing is 100% certain, apart from a few things, but a lot of life is about change. So perceived certainty, this can bring a sense of safety and comfort. And then there's uncertainty on the other side of the scale. There's uncertainty, variety. So we often want also, like there's that need, some people more than others, a sense of adventure, a sense of new things, a sense of like exploring and having some variety in life. Because if we were 100% certain about every single thing in life, oh my goodness, we would be so bored. We would be so bored. Like when you like switched on the TV or you switched on the radio, if you knew every single word that they were going to say before they said it, everything will be certain all the time, and it will just get really boring. So the variety livens things up a little bit. Now, when the scale is a little bit out of balance for our own personal needs, because everyone's different. Some people love lots of uncertainty, and some people want a solid routine and everything is the same. So everyone's different. But when there's an imbalance there, when it's out of balance for our personal needs, then this is when it can be a little bit, this is when anxiety can come up. This is when the fears can come up. This is when it can be a little bit, oh, I'm not quite sure, like what's happening. And it can bring up stuff. It can bring up stuff sometimes related to childhood as well, when things were uncertain. And it's in those times of uncertainty where we can consciously fill up the bucket. I like to see them as buckets, the bucket of perceived certainty. So the useful question is like when there's a fear of change and there's a fear of this uncertainty, is how can I help myself feel more safe and comfortable in this time of uncertainty? Like, how can I comfort myself in the time of uncertainty? How can I help myself to feel more safe and secure in this time of change, uncertainty, when there's this fear coming up? So everyone's different. There can be many different ways that we do this. For some people, that is connecting to the breath. For some people, that's finding some point of contact, like I mentioned before, like feet on the ground, like really connecting to the feet on the ground, coming back into the body. Some people, it's doing some somatic practices, like holding the body, rocking, swaying side to side, doing the butterfly hug. There are many different practices out there that you can find out online. And that can all bring a sense of comfort. And also, like, what can be really beneficial is simply just reframing and shifting our perception about fear and about change in the first place, like change and uncertainty. Because often it's to do with our perception of things that really determines how we experience it. If I perceive change as something bad, if I have beliefs within my mind saying that change is a bad thing, then whenever there's a change, then there's going to be emotions that arise, and there'll be this reaction that I have, and I'll be resisting the change. Whereas if I reframe that and see change as a positive thing, change as an opportunity for growth, change as an opportunity for learning new things, change as an opportunity for acquiring new skills, change as an opportunity for meeting new people, making new connections, change as an opportunity for manifesting wonderful things into our life. Like there's many benefits to change. Change is an opportunity to let go of what's not serving you anymore and to really release the old stuff. All these benefits, all these gifts come from embracing change. So I'd love to hear in the comments section, like, what other gifts does change bring? Like when things are changing and evolving, and maybe there's some uncertainty there, but there's something moving and changing in your life, like changing your job, changing a relationship, changing habits, health, lifestyle patterns, changing changing your hair, like all these different things, like changing how you dress yourself, changing where you live, changing there's many different things that can be changed. So let's hear in the comments section, like, what benefits can come from that. Like, we can learn, grow, and evolve from that. Anything else? I'd love to hear. That this is the thing, like, change can bring a lot of positive things. And this is the thing, like, one of my teachers was saying recently that he was saying that we often consider people as nouns, like as a, like an it or a he or a she, but or a person, but it's like we forget that we're actually verbs, like human beings, we're verbs, we're not a noun. So what I mean by that is that if you sped everything up, like over the course of like 200 years, like if you saw the beginning of life and the person growing, and then they become an adult, and then they go into the elder years, and then they pass on, and then they transition. Like if you sped everything up very quickly, you'll see that human beings, we're processes. We're constantly changing. We're not static all the time. We tend to see ourselves as static, and we place an identity on that, and we think that that's how I am all the time, and that's how it is. And when we see things, like whether it's ourselves or we see a situation, we see a relationship, we see even an object, if you sped this mug up, like of course of 1,000 years, like it would change. Like nothing's 100% set in stone. Like even a mountain or a rock in nature changes. It gets weathered. Things grow on it, like it evolves. So everything's always changing, and seeing everything as this impermanent process, changing process, can really help us to start opening up to the idea that, wow, everything is this, and there can be so much beauty and so many gifts found in that process, and that there's actually nothing to fear of the process. That, yeah, that change can be a wonderful thing. Now, if you know that, let's get a little bit more practical. So if you know that there's something you need to change in your life, like you know that you need to end a relationship, or you want to start a relationship and you want to express your feelings to someone, or you want to quit a job, or you want to apply for your dream job, or you want to, like, whatever it is, if there's something that you want to change and there's this fear coming up because you're like, oh, I know that's what I want, but I'm scared, I'm feeling the fear. And there's a great book, Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway, by Susan Jeffers. And often what happens is that when fear comes up, people get stuck. Either they like run away, they freeze, or they start fighting and reacting, or people pleasing. So it's that typical like flight, fight, freeze, fawn reaction. And again, it's the same. It's like, what beliefs do I have about fear? How am I perceiving fear? Am I allowing myself to feel fear and do it anyway? Because knowing that by doing that, I'm then connecting with courage. Through fear, we can connect to courage. And then life opens up even more. So it's like, okay, like how can I feel the fear, do it anyway, and move through that and really connect to what it is that I want to do, or have that challenging conversation with someone that I know I need to have, and that's what it is. That depends on whatever situation you're in. I'm just giving examples. So if you do feel the fear, like first notice it, like be aware, like where do you feel it in your body? What's coming up? Like where do you notice that fear in your body? Breathe with it, breath. Notice that support, as I was saying, your feet on the ground, you have that support there. And then get curious, like what's behind that? What's behind that fear? Like what is fear inviting you to learn, to get to know? Is it a fear that you'll upset someone? Is it a fear that someone will often it's a fear of like rejection, abandonment, like not being good enough. Like those are the core the core wounds that many people hold from childhood. It's just noticing like what's behind that. And often what I do and what has really helped me is thanking fear. So whenever I feel fear, I thank it. I say, thank you, fear. Thank you for reminding me, fill in the blank, or thank you for teaching me, fill in the blank. So whatever it's brought up for me. So it's like, oh, for example, I need to have I'm just making this up, but for example, if I had to have an important conversation with someone and I was feeling nervous about it and I wanted to set some boundaries or express my needs, but I was feeling nervous about it, and I was feeling fear, then I would notice that fear and I would say, thank you, fear, for reminding me how important my needs are, for reminding me how much I value that interaction with that person, for reminding me you can continue, fill in the blank. There are many different things that fear is bringing up. There's a difference between learning from fear and living according to fear. I'll say that again. There's a difference between learning from fear and living according to fear. So quite often when fear comes up, people get stuck in it or they try to not feel it, and then they don't make any changes. So it's by us really paying attention to it, learning it, feeling it, and we get to move through it. It's not about not feeling fear. Often this is the misconception that people need to think, I need to be fearless. I need to never feel fear. And that's one of the biggest mistakes because fear, thanks to fear, human beings are still here on this planet. Fear has helped us. Like when fear is stuck and we're not really allowing it to flow, then it turns into anxiety, panic attacks, and all of that. Though when fear is in flow, it's that intuitive knowing that, oh, something doesn't feel right. I'm going to walk down this street rather than that street, or I'm going to remove that person from my environment, or I'm not going to, like, we just know, we feel it, and it's that's when fear is in flow that we're able to really pay attention to that. Like fear is incredibly useful. The problem is that most people have got stuck in it, and that's the difference. So it's all about, it's not about like never feeling fear again. It's about really noticing it, learning from it, and then moving through it. So often the thing that is underneath most things, and this is like what I was talking about in other classes as well with anxiety, the thing that is creating more of the problem for most people is that people are afraid of being human, afraid of feeling, like afraid of fear itself. And it's something that we've all done at various times, myself included. And the more we start rewriting the story with emotions themselves, and like really noticing our beliefs about emotions. Like, what do I believe about fear? What do I believe about anger? What do I believe about sadness? Like really paying attention to that and changing that if any of that is limiting, then that can be really beneficial, because then we start seeing it as, oh, okay, thank you, fear. Thank you, fear, for giving me a lesson. And I'll continue connecting to love. So this is in one of my audio programs on my website. If people want further information, I have an audio program, and this month, until the end of the month, until the 31st, there's 11% off. So you're more than welcome to grab that if you want. There's a code with love, number 5, all in capitals, and you can get 11% off. And in one of those episodes that I talk about the 3 L's: listen, learn, connect to what you love, regardless. So in that context, I was talking more about it in terms of the inner critic, but really, what's the inner critic? Like, there's fear related to that. It's fear of not being loved, or fear of not being good enough, fear of not being worthy. So listen, learn, connect to what you love, regardless. So it doesn't mean we live according to fear, but we can certainly learn from it. So thank you so much. I'm going to end the class there, and we've covered a lot of things. So just to recap very briefly, things that can be useful with decisions and choices is getting things out onto paper, writing it down. If you need to do a pro and cons list, you can. Though most importantly, connect with the body. Does one option feel more expansive than the other? Does one feel more uplifting than the other in your body? And then noticing that any decision is simply just a different experience. There's no right or wrong. You're simply just choosing between experiences. And if you're not quite sure, test it out, try it out. Find ways where you can test it out. And then with fear, thanking fear, learning from it, connecting to what you love regardless, and remembering that any uncertainty, any change in life, like, this is part of life, and everything is a process. Nothing's permanent. So seeing it as that can also help us to just surrender a little bit. Often it's the fear that wants to control things and have everything certain, though we can find some comfort in the breath and feeling our feet on the ground and bringing some kindness to ourselves. So coming up on the 5th of April, there is another dance class. So last week it was such a success. So many people loved it. We had a full room, and it was a really, really lovely workshop. So the next one will be on the 5th of April. So if you're in the area, Vilanova i Geltrú, so it's a short train ride from Barcelona. Friday, the 5th of April, that will be when the class is. So if you're interested, you can send me a WhatsApp at +34 6226 98673. And then also coming up on the 18th of April, there is another women's circle, and this will be all about abundance and money. So that's in Barcelona. So if you're interested in joining that women's circle, then just send me a message also. And these online classes will continue every week. Next week, I'll need to see, because we're over, it's Easter time, so I need to check whether I can still do a class next week. But if there's not one next week, you've got more than like a year and a half of replays to catch up on if I'm not around. So I will update things on Instagram. I'll let people know on Instagram. If you're not following me there, make sure that you are. And just let me know if there's any questions, any queries. I'd love to hear if you want any specific topics for the next coming weeks. And if you want some further support, one-on-one sessions are available in person and also online worldwide. So all the information's on my website. So wishing you a wonderful rest of the week and sending much love.